Hello and welcome. My name is Clara. I am the daughter of Boston George, the stepdaughter of Boston George, and I am going over and discussing some um, things that will what our platform is about, and that's kind of what we are um, in the midst of doing. And so I would love for everyone to ask questions, and anyone when you join, I would love to know if you have anything. I would love to ask questions in regards to um, the movie, the writing of the book. The anybody who has seen the movie Blow will understand that a lot of it is was, of course, based on a screenplay, but the movie Blow is also based on a book. The book, who was written by Bruce Porter, was written alongside Boston George, who is George Jung, who happens to be my stepfather, was my stepfather. George was the notorious smuggler who was introduced to the smuggling business back in the 80s and was known for the character played in the movie Blow by Johnny Depp, who was made famous by Johnny Depp. And it's one of those things that he, became very notoriously famous for, and was part of um, of a business that no one ever realized that would become the way it is now. And so it is one of those things. What we're trying to do is come to the point of the that no one really knows the side of our us as the sisters, the ones that actually grew up in the shadows. And that's the base of our platform, is growing up in the shadows. And that was one of the things that people didn't realize, that even upon talking about George, that growing up in the shadows was really a difficult lifestyle, because we were the children and of being a part of that system. And being a part of that system, it's hard. And it was, navigating through it as children. There's so much expectations of you as a child. You automatically are supposed to know the rules, and yet you don't know what the rules are. And you learn them quickly, even though they're never really specifically and expressly told to you. And just like that, you have to follow them. Also, the aftermath and the chaos that comes along with it is something that we also had to learn to adjust to and be a part of. Um, in the movie, of course, there's a lot of different portrayals that are done, interpretations of what actually happened during that time of the movie. But what people don't realize, that it's a sensationalization of Hollywood, and the way that the screenplay was written, and how it was done, and what was needed to sell the movie. They do a lot of expenses in making these movies, so that they can make movies. And so that's exactly what happens. And so there's a lot of things that are fictional in the movie. And that's what my sister and I had decided to do, that we were going to set the record straight on a lot of different things. And basically, I want to set the record straight on a lot of different things, because there are a lot of I'll give you a perfect example. In the movie, during my mother's pregnancy with my sister Christina, they show her as being highly addicted to, drugs during her pregnancy, which in fact, that is the total opposite. She was not. She was actually very clean during her pregnancy with my sister and had a very healthy pregnancy and a very healthy child. So the one who actually had the health issues during the pregnancy was George, and he actually had a heart attack while my mom was in labor with Christina, because of the amount of substance that he was using and abusing. So there's a lot of myths and a lot of facts, but either way, we want to clarify. I want to clarify them, and I want to continue, living in truth. And it's my story, because it really is my story. The child sorry, the child who is depicted in the movie is in fact, at the age group of what I went through as a child, not so much my sister. My sister was an infant when, at the height of when everything was going on. She was born in the late 70s. And when our parents went to jail, she was a baby. She was not even a toddler. So a lot of the conflicts that happened and a lot of the things that went on was something that I was the one who actually saw everything. There are, different videos that I have posted and short stories that I have posted about, being a part of that organization and growing up in a society where you have to live a certain way and perform a certain styles and expectations, and they just never include the kids. They just never the kids are always left out and of what is going on and what really happens to the kids and what was supposed to go on with us. So, and it's sad because, they forget there are children who are involved in all of this. And it, and we tend to, when we tend to see movies, yeah, there might be kids in the background, but they're just like shadows. They're just background voices, and nobody ever really sees what really happens in the background. And that's the reality of it. And when you're a child and you're living in that background tends to be very quiet and very lonely and very and just in general very forthtelling, because it becomes very chaotic for you as a child. It's not one of those things that you um, see happen, and as it happens in real time, you're subjected to so much chaos and so much trauma and so much inconsistency, and there's no structure, and there's no buddy explaining to you. The world doesn't slow down enough to say, hey, let me explain what's going on. You see people doing things that normally you would be like, what, is that normal? And so I also like to reflect on the journey of healing, because there is a lot of healing that went on in the aftermath. So for many, many years, I never came forward. And even though, I was there while they were filming the movie, and I always stayed in touch with George, even when he got out of prison and he lived in San Diego. He lived with me in San Diego. He there was always a presence of the alcoholism never stopped. And so I grew up with a sense of just knowing what I was going to do with my life, because of what I was not going to be in that sense. So knowing that now, I decided, I am going to now, after all these years, I am going to, say, hey, look, this is what happened. This is how I grew up. This is what I was exposed to. This is what happened. And now this is how I survived it. And and hopefully it helps somebody else, to know that there is a calm after the storm, because there is, as long as you have it, the peace, and you want the peace, it exists, and you can go and get it. So you know there's always knowing that, and an understanding that that's going to be part of the conversation, that regardless of what circumstances your childhood brought, that you have the capacity to grow up and be able to say, hey, you know what, I did it. I regardless in despite of, yeah, regardless of what happened, I survived this, and I was able to go ahead and be a part of something greater than, and I didn't let it define me. I didn't let it bring me down to a point where I would end up a statistic. I didn't allow it to let it consume me. So I want to talk a lot about that in the healing journey that I took with it, because a lot of things did occur. A lot of things were happening in that whole setup of growing up, and then my parents going to jail, and then moving, and then becoming an adult woman, and still living with the clean and sober mom, but yet that clean and sober mom wasn't necessarily a mentally healthy mom. She wasn't always a great functioning person who made life a great thing to be around. So there's that. And I hope that on some level that, one of these, as we watch and as we see things go on in life, that we can go and do things together, and this platform grows, and I'm able to participate with a bunch of people, and they join and subscribe. Right now, I just want people to understand that there is hope in this life, and that I want to be a part of any journey that you're going through, and offer any support that I can. And because it is hard to navigate those waters, it's not an easy task. It's especially when you grow up and you don't know any way or have anyone to count on to help you, bring you through those murky waters, because they can get very murky. So it's a matter of just knowing, setting a goal, and just accomplishing goal after, one at a time, and moving on to the next one, and moving on to the next one, and accomplishing them emotionally, because they're all emotional goals. Because in order to survive the chaos and the insanity of childhood trauma, of course, depending on your type of trauma, it is all about overcoming the emotions, and understanding that you can't let it beat you. You have to learn to fight them, to understand them, to embrace them, to accept them, because there's some things that you won't never get in you know, answers on. You'll have questions and you'll never get answers. You'll want validation that you'll never get. There's apologies that you're going to want that you're never going to get. There's just so many things that go on in healing that seem that this should be two-sided if the person still is around who caused the chaos, and you won't get, and be for a number of reasons, and so it's knowing that and understanding that to start your healing journey so that you can go on and become a better person in your personal growth, in your personal healing journey. And that's the only thing that really matters, in understanding that process. Well, I hope to be on soon again one more time, and I hope that I get more participants, and that one day there'll be people who are interested in hearing the stories that go behind the scenes of uh, really know what happened growing up in the shadow of the movie Blow as a child and as an adult.